Hey Cooper, this is Mr. Soy. Yeah, I'm just going to help you out a little bit on the chapter mid quiz so you can take it the third time and hopefully do much better. Um, as far as the definitions at the beginning of the mid quiz, I'm not going to help you with those. Those are things that you should be able to look up in the textbook and online on your own. That's a skill that most students have learned all the way back to elementary school. So you go ahead and make that search through the textbook and online, and you will find everything you need to get those questions correct. All right, problem number 2. We'll start there. And here we're told basically that your starting value is going to be $750 and that you're earning 7.5% simple interest. Well, you were correct in identifying that this is, in fact, a linear relationship, and so I am going to use an equation y equals mx plus b. Well, you already knew what your start value was. That was the b, 750. Where you had confusion was in the rate of change. Keep in mind that a growth rate, and that's what this is right here, growth rate, is never going to be the m, ever. We use that to find what the m is, and this goes back to what simple interest is. Simple interest is finding the interest on the principal, and the principal in this case is how much you started with, and then add that every year. So the slope you were looking for is in essence the interest on the principal. So my m is the interest on my principal. Well, to find the interest on my principal, I take the percentage, 7.5%, change it to a decimal, and then simply multiply that times my principal or my start value. And when I do that, I end up with $56.25. And that's essentially the m for that equation. Okay, looking at problem 3 in the mid-quiz, it appears that you were pretty close to getting it right. You definitely need to use the equation y equals ab to the x, where a is my initial value, b is my common ratio, which uses the interest rate in the problem, and then raise that to the x power. Well, you had the initial value right, which is a equals the $1,050. The b is where you struggled. First of all, you didn't use the correct interest rate. The interest rate you used was 7.5% from the previous problem, when in this problem the interest rate is 5.5%. So basically, you just need to make that modification to your equation, and you will have it correct. You also put parentheses before the 1050, so this was your answer here. Y equals parentheses 1050 parentheses 1 plus 0.075, which is not the correct interest rate, up arrow x. You need to get rid of this parentheses, and you need to change that interest rate to the correct one. And then when they ask for the amount after 5 years, you'll have the correct equation and you'll get the correct amount. And that's how you do that problem. All right, looking at problem 4 on the mid-quiz, we're dealing with a radioactive substance here that essentially decays over time. The idea of a half-life is the time it takes for the substance to lose half its quantity. Well, typically I can't find this until I have the equation. The equation will look like y equals ab to the x power, where a is my initial amount, and b is the common ratio, which has the decay rate in it. So since it's going to be a decay rate, in this case they tell us that we have a set number of values in a table. Well, all I do is I take the next value in the table and I divide it by the previous. For example, I take the next value, which is after 1 year, there's 344.86, and I believe it's kilograms left, and I divide it by the amount there was at 0 years, or the initial amount, which was 350. That gives me then my common ratio, and I would do it again for the next set as well. So I would do 339.79 divided by 344.86, and if they're all the same, that's my common ratio. And then you can create the equation, and the annual decay rate, once you have your common ratio, basically the decay rate's going to be, you calculate that simply by taking 1 minus the common ratio. And that will calculate then the decay rate as a decimal, and you need to then just multiply that by 100 to make it a percentage. And then put your equation in your calculator, look at the table, and see when you basically have half the original amount left. Since it was 350 you started with, you want to see in the table when it gets down to 175. And so that would be then the half-life. So good luck on that problem. Thanks.